Welcome to Playing with Fire, the podcast for people who are ready to custom build their love.
We're talking about non-monogamy, however you design it, as an individuation opportunity.
Want to leave the default and make your life spectacularly you? You're in the right place.
Hi again. Let's
It's
talk.
you.
It is. It's me again. Knock, knock. I would like to talk today about getting off the relationship escalator. And I know you have some thoughts about that.
Does that mean?
As do
Never
I.
mind. I don't wear a wedding ring anyways. Yeah. Let's discuss the reasons. Maybe we can talk about like why you would and how you would, or what else would you like to talk about?
Well, we should certainly talk about the relationship escalator, so we know what we're talking about getting off of.
You know how I like to define a term.
Like that. But maybe we could talk about some of the other escalators that there are.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Amy Garan is the person who originated this term, the relationship escalator. They actually wrote a book. It's back there, and it's a fantastic book. Highly recommend it. It's a great book for just contemplating, thinking about like turning your notions of relationship on their head. If you're in that questioning phase, it's a nice read. And the relationship escalator, as I understand it, is it's the thing that we never talk about when we're talking about relationships in the default. It is this implicit assumption that if a relationship begins, it needs to continually, incrementally increase in intensity along a trajectory that somehow everyone knows about and nobody even really has to talk about. It's the thing that has us thinking we have to like date, and then when we get to a certain point, we have to define the relationship as monogamous, and then we have to define the relationship by like saying we're going to move in together and we're going to get married and we're going to have a baby and we're going to buy a house and all those things.
Yeah. And nobody talked about it when I was not just growing up, but for a whole lot of my adulthood. Nobody talked about that because it was the default. You didn't have to. That's just what you do.
Right. There's just the one path.
Yeah,
and
what
that's
else?
why the metaphor of the escalator is brilliant because of that. Because once you get on an escalator, you got just the one way to go. And you can like run up it. You could go faster, or you could try to run down it, but it's just designed to take you in one particular direction, and it's designed to be an ascension model. Like there's some place you're going that's beyond, that's upward. And that metaphor really helped me unpack my notions of what does it mean to even be in a relationship. I remember it being one of the earlier metaphors that was like,
and the metaphor,
what if I don't do that?
the metaphor of height is such a strong one in the English speaking world. Anyway, this part of it, that higher is better.
Yeah, I mean, the halo effect is real. You're tall, and you get a lot of
people pay attention to me for no good reason other than I'm tall. And Terry Pratchett addressed this in his Discworld books, because the dwarves, they live underground and they mine, so the lower was better. So they had a low king, and it was inverted, and all the things that we say, the the highest of, it was the lowest, that was better. So it's arbitrary. But because it's so commonplace, this metaphor works very well.
I appreciate talking about getting off the relationship escalator. To me, it's not about demonizing wanting an escalating relationship.
No, that might be exactly what you want.
But the difference between questioning it,
right, the idea
and doing it consciously
of
versus
being
default
on an escalator with guardrails and no way off is different from, well, I want to get up there though. That's where I want to be. Okay, cool. There are lots of ways to get there.
Right. The idea of having one particular pathway is the thing that I find most helpful to question. You and I sit here as a set of people in a relationship that where we signed a piece of paper that said that the state gives us a bunch of privileges because we're married, that word. And that trajectory right there, like I remember there's a legitimacy provided to people who walk the appropriate relationship escalator. We had been together for 4 years when we signed that piece of paper. And for the first 3 years and 11 months and 29 days, I felt a distinct dismissal of our relationship, especially because of the way it started. It
Yep.
started at non-monogamous.
An
Um,
external dismissal, like
and then, of course, people
people
thought that it
around
was going
us.
to stop being non-monogamous just because we got married, which, I mean, irony, like, no, that wasn't okay. But there was a legitimacy granted. So I can understand why um, just being on the relationship escalator can be comforting at a level that's hard to detect, at a level that is like unconscious, wanting approval, wanting to adhere, wanting to be part of the norm.
Yeah, and kind of there, we have a whole other episode we can do and will do on why get married specifically, but the the relationship escalator, I mean, it goes, the default, it goes to a particular spot that, or it goes in a particular direction anyway, that contains these things that you're describing. Theoretically, it's security and companionship and certainty, and
Yeah.
these things that may or may not actually be on there, but
Yeah,
you
I would
take the actions. It in my view, it kind of, it informs the actions you take in your relationship. So what do we do from here? Well, according to the escalator, we do this thing.
right. And so if I am operating from a sort of unconscious place where I'm just moving through my life and I'm not being really intentional, it's it's easy to just be on an escalator because the norm carries me then. And so you said we should talk about the multiple different escalators, the
Yeah.
sub escalators.
Yep.
I think that's a great idea because yeah, we tend to think about the like dating to serious relationship to marriage pipeline. And that's like one relationship escalator. But I do think it's important to think about the way we talk about all sorts of relationships and the things we do in relationships as having this natural big big air quotes, this natural
That's right.
escalation, right?
Hmm.
Dating, there's this natural escalating mood. And friendship, there's this like, hey, if my friendship isn't increasing in intimacy or increasing in consistency, if it's not increasing in vulnerability, then is it a good friendship? There's I mean, the sex escalator too.
Right. I mean,
Am I
why are we kissing? Are we kissing so that we can do all the other things, like soon
and
or
now that we've
ever?
kissed,
And
does that mean that the next time we need to go
is
further and the next
what are
time
the,
further and
yeah.
further
Mhm.
um, and the kink escalator? Like, now that if we open the door to some kinks, does that mean that I inherently want to keep escalating this? I want to keep going in this direction towards more or better or more intense? I don't even know where that goes, but yeah. Um,
And this is, yeah, the family escalator, which, I mean, I have seen so many examples of that one being applied to other people. So you got married. So when are we going to get a,
when
when are you going to get a grandchild? When are you going to have kids? Like there's this expectation that, well, it's, you're on it, right? You're going to keep going.
I was 17 and engaged and got that question.
That's a little scary.
I was 17. I still remember my uncle's arm wrapped around my shoulders. So when will we get when will we get the babies? I was
Because it's
17, sir. I was 17.
yeah.
um,
Oh,
thanks. I'm good. And as it was, I mean, I didn't make him wait that long. I only made him wait 5 years, but it was presumptive. There's this presumptive direction, and that when we talk about individuation oriented relationships, it's not that you can't be doing a trajectory that might include all of these things. I mean, We both have, but there was such a difference between doing it unconsciously, when I was in my early 20s, and doing it because, yeah, I didn't know that there was any other option. And even when I did question the option given to me, I was presented with, well, something I heard one of my kids presented with today. But this is tradition.
Yep. Yeah.
I was very happy to hear her say, yeah, that's your tradition. You are welcome to uphold it, but I will be doing me. Thank you.
Yeah. That was great to
Huzzah for
hear.
them. Very happy for them.
And there's
Um,
there's another escalator. There's the career escalator. I
yeah.
mean, there are a lot of different career escalators, right?
Well, as an
And
entrepreneur, there's an escalator too,
yep,
right? Like you have had a corporate career
yep,
escalator, and I've had the entrepreneurial escalator shoved at me. Like you have to keep increasing, and you have to keep doing.
yeah, dude. Keep growing, we keep adding,
So we're
and
listing all these, I'm assuming, in part because we want to get conscious about them.
yeah,
Sorry, I
and
cut you off though.
that it's not just it's not an isolated uh, it's not an isolated thing. It's not isolated to relationships, as you said. This is a thing that humans seem to like to do. We like to, well, we like to have known paths for one thing. It's rather than it can be hard and scary to bushwhack. But I wanted to say one more thing about the career escalator, which was
Yeah.
mine, fairly quickly turned into one of those airport walkways.
Like not actually even
Just
faster than
no,
walking.
not faster than
Like
walking,
just
doesn't
it
go
was
up,
just
doesn't go, it goes the same place. Yeah. It was
it's like a whole questionable life choice because you get
oh,
behind somebody and now you're like, now I'm just
yeah.
actually
Oh, now I'm
stuck.
just here. Yeah. So anyway, I just
Oops.
but
I'm
yeah,
guessing
as
that we have people listening who resonate
who can
with that.
identify. Yeah.
I appreciate naming these different escalators because when you said, it's a human thing, it is a human thing. Not all humans feel comforted this
No,
way.
that's right.
Some, in
Yeah.
fact, like they rail against it. They rail against it from the get-go. They
Yeah.
don't like it. They don't want any part of it. They dig their heels in. They eschew all of these things called traditions, and they don't want the standard path. And like they are
Yeah.
the punksters. Like
Yeah.
they're going their own way. I love that for them. That wasn't me. I stood somewhere in the middle. I was like, I want to have my own way, but then I would adhere to these scripts where I didn't even know that there was a possibility of questioning them
Right.
because I wasn't of a full I didn't have a mental model that said you get to question everything.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of us at midlife in particular have to really like wrestle with the reality that even though we may have thought ourselves quite independent, quite iconoclastic as younger people, like, oh, maybe I did think that, but wow, I chose a lot of things that I maybe had no business doing
Yeah.
or
And
weren't even thoughtful, but they seemed thoughtful in the context I was in at the time. So
and
I don't want to demonize this. I did it
no,
too.
absolutely not. I want to give everybody a lot of grace. And for one thing, anytime you hear me say a human thing, what I mean is there are some humans that do this. There is, I don't think there's anything that is true of all humans. We're all carbon-based life forms, I guess, as far as I
As
know.
far as I know,
I
yeah.
don't. But yeah, I want to give people the grace that when okay, question everything. That's great. How do you see the things you don't even know to look at, questions you just can't imagine asking? You're
Yeah.
like, yeah, you until something happens to expand your imagination in that direction, you can't ask the question. That's just how that works.
And that's why, I mean, that is absolutely why I wasn't polyamorous by name, by moniker, by label, throughout my whole life. I fell in love with multiple people, but I had no idea that that was anything other than some weird quirk in me that I was just supposed to shove to the side every time it
Mhm.
came up. I didn't know it's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about giving people language is because when we have language, it is possible to imagine more options. And that doesn't
Yep.
mean you won't choose the original option. Um, I mean, it's why just naming the word compersion, just having that word, which didn't appear till the 90s, but having that particular word, like it introduces this other possibility, feeling joy for my partner's joy
Yep.
when they're out on a date or having sex instead of only feeling jealousy. Um, yeah, just introducing language can bust open our imagination, make some space, but the relationship escalator is a particular case,
Yep.
and getting off
It's
of it takes effort. Um,
it takes effort not just from our own individual imaginations, but against the often unintentional pressure of the community around us.
right. The collectives we find ourselves in, and that's so I was thinking about my family of origin. There was some pressure to adhere to norms, and then the societal, the images I'm presented with, the films, the
Right.
books I read,
Sure.
all of that, right? They all reinforce the idea that there is a trajectory to be on. And then there's a really, really persnickety one that I still have a hard time with, which is it's built like it's hardwired into me from the time I was an infant that there was a correct way for me to feel love, and it will be an
Mm.
escalator design, and anything less than that means something's wrong and I'm not loved, or something's wrong with me. It triggers my core wounds of like, oh, I'm unlovable.
So
I
you
something's wrong with me.
so you get into a safety concern.
I get into a safety feedback loop,
Yeah, feedback
which
loop.
is like, oh, so even if I want to be off the escalator, I can be also getting at a very subconscious level this feedback from myself. The call's coming from inside the house that, yes, but if my partner doesn't want to ride the escalator with me, also probably I'm not loved. And that's the stuff when we talk about unpacking or unfucking the mono mind. That's some of the stuff that we have to do. It's this continual interrogation of all of our parts, all of the aspects of me that aren't all aligned. They're like they may have different feelings about whether it's good to escalate in that trajectory or whether that's bad, or what it means, the meaning I make
The
out of
meaning you
that
make out
escalator.
of the escalator or its absence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, so all of this is to say that is deep psychological work and it happens on an iterative cycle, because often people will feel like, okay, I got off the relationship escalator. And I mean, I think you and I found ourselves back on it just during COVID. We're like,
Right.
"Oh, oh, wait." So we weren't seeing anybody else, and the dating apps were just like, just decimated at the time, at least in our area. And yeah, I just sort of felt that compulsion to just kind of ride the escalator with you. Like, oh, I remember that the way we talked about our relationship started to kind of
Yeah.
tone into monogamous tendencies.
Even though
And
within the absence of okay, so there weren't um because of the pandemic, we weren't going out.
yeah,
But there were a lot of ways to stay home. And
yeah,
we often slid into the that standard escalator model.
right. And
Um,
for me, that was, I stopped prioritizing my friendships, and I started, yeah, over focusing on the like this core romantic relationship in my
right.
life. And I'm like,
Yep.
we were about maybe 12 or 13 months in, and I was like, oh, what have I done? This
Right.
is not
Yep.
good for me. And when I say not good for me, I mean, it actually damaged my friendships. It made it hard. Like there was repair that needed to happen. And so, the relationship escalator it can feel good at times, but it can also lead us to places where we're forgetting to live into all the areas of
Yeah.
intimacy and connection that we mean to, because
So
the
the
escalator is just
reason,
there to get on and
yep, and the
keeps
reason
things
it's
simple.
deep psychological work is because I mean, I hear you describing, and I remember that feeling of, oh, okay, I'm neglecting parts of me.
Yeah.
And the answer to that was to pay attention to it, to do the work, to interrogate myself
Yeah.
and explore actions I could take to make sure I was um, activating and energizing these all the parts of me, so that I didn't just limit myself to just what fit on the escalator.
Yeah, so it's not just that it damaged my friendships, it damaged my relationship to the diversity of myself. And, you know, I wanna make sure we talk too about the fact that we co-create this. Like, on a social level, we create and uphold the escalator. And, in general, there are a lot of non-monogamous people who are doing the heavy lifting of unpacking the escalator, of dismantling it, taking it apart, asking us to question if that's how relationships have to work. And then there are lots and lots of people who are non monogamous, but then still really want to uphold and adhere to the relationship escalator in like 90 to 95% of their life. And they want to just keep this other bit on the side. And this is tender for me because this means that we're essentially prioritizing that monogamous way of being, and it comes at a cost socially. Like, we keep reinforcing the monogamous norms and giving a presentation to the world that the monogamous norms and that relationship escalator are good and they fit for us. And then we also have this other thing. And
So
in
what
the
do
big
you
picture, that's a little scary because now what happens for those of us who are like, well, but the escalator doesn't fit me. So do I
yeah,
not fit in this world?
right.
Fuck that. I don't like
S-
that.
right? Yuck. That's talk about safety problems. Oh, I don't belong here at all.
Yeah.
So, what do you suggest? Okay, so how do we um gently, like, we're not talking about militancy or anything, but in our interactions, what can we do to um just open up the possibility beyond the escalator?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first off, I think I'd be remiss not to say reading about relationship anarchy, and the idea of allowing all relationships to unfold in their own
Hmm.
way, and
Okay.
not exercising power over each other, in as we develop relationships. In other words, not saying my relationships have to go a certain way. Like just opening yourself up to reading about that, listening about it, that can help you question the internal conversation. Like, why
Yeah.
do I want to be on the relationship escalator? Why do I want to privilege my couplehood? And why do I want to privilege that for everyone? Like, why do I want to socially privilege it?
Yeah,
And just
I'm
question it. I'm not asking you to say, like, it's bad. I do not believe that it is helpful for us to say everyone should be any particular way in relationships. But can we just be in the question at
in the
least and
question.
question what it's doing to us as a culture, as a group?
I just thought of a beautiful example of how interactions like this can reinforce these kinds of boundaries, these like lanes that we get stuck in. And it's from the Blues Brothers back in the
Man, you're
80s.
old.
Yep. And so they show up at this honky tonk bar, and they're going, and they're like, so I guess we're gonna play here. What kind of music do you guys have here? Oh, we have both kinds, country and western. It just did not allow for the possibility of anything else. And so in our conversations, in our interactions with um, new acquaintances or old ones, um, asking open-ended questions, making open-ended comments about relationship can help um, reduce that pressure to stay on the escalator.
Right. And I mean, this also, I think there's some great work being written right now. There's a book called oh my goodness, I think it's Being Single at Heart,
Mm.
recently came out about, prioritizing your relationship to self.
Mm.
And this is another area where, like, these two things intersect, where what if someone doesn't want to be on the relationship escalator because they want to be in relationship to themselves first, and want to have a diverse network of connections, lovers, friendships, whatever they want in their life. This is another way where we could be reinforcing the adherence to this one model to the detriment of lots of kinds of people. It's not just about polyamorous people, it's about all sorts of different ways of being in the world, or people who just experience a lot of difficulty in the dating world. Like, there's so much. But what I think about, you said open-ended questions. I think also, like, calling people in when they prioritize the whole idea that there's anything wrong with being at a gathering on your own or being single. Like, calling people in on that, like that, I have heard it recently over and over again, and I've heard people in tears because they're being, like, singled out, they're being pointed out at, often in this, like, sort of loving, ribbing way, but, like, no, no, we
Yeah.
cannot be doing that. And so getting off the relationship escalator, I don't think this is something we do individually. I think this is something we actually do culturally. This is something as a group we can begin questioning the need to prioritize any particular relationship script, and instead be in curiosity about what the person in front of us is doing with their life, how they're
Yep.
spending their time, where their heart wants to spend their energy, and, like, ask those questions. Because I'm pretty tired of hearing the tears, but not too tired to hear. I'll keep listening because that's awful.
But
Um,
it's avoidable
and it's
because,
avoidable.
yeah,
It's so
it just,
avoidable. There's another thing though. Um, we got to get clear on ways to build security without relying on the escalator. Because I hear those people, those same people who are really hurt, and they're like, I'm hurt because it feels like I'm doing something wrong. Something's wrong with me because I'm not proceeding on the relationship trajectory. And one of the things that I hear them, like, underneath their conversation, is they're afraid of something. But it's because culturally, socially, we have just the one path toward feeling, like, relationally safe. There's just the one path. Find a person and grab onto them and don't let go.
yep.
That
And if you,
that's pretty anti-communal.
it
I
is,
mean,
and if you get off that path, there's a lot of evidence that, well, you just described it, of getting this back pressure, of getting this um, shunning behavior,
yeah.
that which is, I mean, for humans is one of the really, like, that is painful to our security. Like, if everybody's going away, like, oh, I don't belong, that's a bad feeling.
Right. So we get then our attachment wounds get poked, and also just our basic human need to be included in a group, to belong. Like, that's more than we could just reduce to attachment theory. The human need to be a social creature, to belong to the group. Um, so when we have conversations about how relationships grow, how they develop, entering into them with a spirit of curiosity about the many ways that relationships can be secure, healthy, can support the individuals in them without following any particular path, and striving to be inclusive of friendships, to make space for people to be building their life off the escalator. So even if you choose to be on the relationship escalator, are you making space for the other people in your life to not be on it? And I as a parent of many children, I think about that quite a lot. Am I making space in my assumptions and the way I talk about my children's future? Am I making space for the fact that, what if they want to build a life with a group of friends? What if they decide to be single? What if they decide that they want to get on and off the relationship escalator or the presumed trajectory?
So it takes a lot of self-reflection and interrogation to, like, what assumptions am I coming into this interaction with? And for me, that tends to happen right. I mean, I try to plan my conversations. It never goes well because the other person talks, and then it's a whole other thing. But but before I start into the conversation, in particular with relationships, because this is a kind of a I value this topic a lot. So I'm thinking, right, what assumptions, if I ask this question, is it going to guide them toward the idea that they should be a particular way? And if it feels like it will, then I'll try to ask it another way, or I won't ask it at all and try to get the information some other way. And just because I want people to know I'm interested in them, but I don't want to ask them questions in a way that demands that they behave in a particular way. And with my middle class, white male, upper middle class, whatever, white male privilege, when I say stuff like that, people respond. And I don't want them to respond in that way, but this is where I am. This is who I am. So I have to think and be aware and sensitive to what they might be experiencing.
And I'm hearing you doing the work of participating in shifting the norms, right?
Yeah,
And
I hope
and
so.
that's challenging. I mean, and it's one of the ways I think we do this as a group versus, yeah, to get off the relationship escalator. I also, as an individual, need to do things like question, what is it that I want out of relationships, and where am I seeking a sense of security or connectedness, and how am I meeting my relational needs, and and how am I communicating that to others? Those are all important questions, but I'm enthralled by the idea that every time we're talking to anyone in our life, that, like, this is so far beyond our, like, our conversations with our partners and our
Yeah.
lovers. This is conversations with our kids and our parents and our communities, our coworkers,
Our baristas.
our baristas, right? Like, shifting out of default coupledom, like that trajectory, shifting out of the language around that changes what is possible for everyone, because it makes space for the imagination, and asking unusual questions about that
Yeah.
too. Like,
Questions
really,
that
okay,
mix
now
things
I'm
up a little.
inspired to actually write down some of the questions that I ask so that I don't ask those other questions, because I know I do it already, thinking
Hmm.
like, what do I do so that I don't ask those, like, mono cis het normative questions?
Yeah.
And I do it, but I've never really thought about it. I'm gonna start writing down what it is I say to the baristas. What is it that I'm saying?
Yep.
Because I'm curious how I'm living this. Like, what are the words when I'm
Me
faced with
too.
that
That's a
moment?
really good thing. Yeah.
And
I
I
like
would
that.
love to hear from others.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
What are you
How are
doing?
you unpacking
How
this?
does that work for you?
And we've got an AMA conversation coming up soon. We've got an Ask Me Anything. There's a link to join us for the next one right in the show notes, or you can go to joliehamilton.com/AMA and you'll find the next one. Sign up, join us. There's no one right way to design your relationship. And lots of people, actually about 25%, according to a recent national survey, are interested in some type of open relationship. But how do you know if you are ready to open up happily? Not everyone is, and that's no problem. I've got a 60-second quiz that will give you the answer. And even better, you'll walk away with your next step, whether you're good to go or not so much when it comes to opening up. And this is no BuzzFeed nonsense. I personally designed this quiz from my years of academic research. Go to joliequiz.com. That's JOLIQUIZ.com, and find out if you're ready to open up happily and what to do if you are or if you're not.